Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Near the end of his work on moral virtue, Plutarch is going to begin a discussion about something that he's already addressed a number of times throughout the work, the fact that there should be a proper arrangement within the human soul where the higher or better part is governing over and calling the shots for the lower part. And he's going to begin this discussion by bringing up Plato, not a big surprise since he is a Middle Platonist. And he says, it would be ridiculous, as Plato says in the Republic, for a person to say that he's now better than himself and again worse than himself, sometimes master of himself and sometimes not. And we can ask, well, how is it possible for a same person to be both better and worse than himself, or be master of himself and at the same time be mastered? And there's an answer to this. Well, if we're thinking about the person as a complete unity, that's not possible, right? However, if we realize that the soul is composite, that there are parts to it, well, then we can say that in some cases, the better part is calling the shots, right? And is in charge, and thereby the person is in control of themselves. That's literally a translation of being self-controlled, enkrateas, right? Or enkratos. And sometimes they're lacking self-control. They have akrasia, or they are undergoing, this state, and that's when the worst part is running wild, we could say, calling the shots, perhaps even making the rational part work for it. And he says, well, that's the case. We are by nature double. We have two parts within ourselves, and both of those are us, right? So sometimes the better part is in charge, and sometimes the worst part is in charge. And so, our job, if we want to accept it, is to have that better part dominating in certain respects, but not just mastering in a despotic way the worst part. So he's going to say something really interesting here. He tells us that it's in accordance with nature that a certain arrangement occurs. And so, in accordance with nature, phuse, it's by nature, proseke, right? It should go this way. It's the proper arrangement. And what is it? Well, we have these two parts. He is saying here that the reasonable part, the logismon, is actually divine within us. Theia, or theon. It is, not God itself or himself or herself, but it is something that is reflective of God. And then there's a bodily connected part, the irrational part of our soul, the part that we feel emotions with and have various drives. So the rational part should, as he says, lead, hagisthai, to be in charge, and to rule or determine, archein. And it should lead and rule not just itself, but the irrational part, which should be obeying it, being ruled, being made useful as we'll talk about. And then he's got a long discussion, very interesting one, about how the body and the irrational part of the soul are connected together. So he tells us that the irrational part, it actually derives its origin from the body, which nature has designed it should bear a resemblance to, right? It should imitate and share in the body's passions, be contaminated by it because it's entered into the body and has become merged with it. And this is shown, he says, by our various impulses, the hormai, the ways in which we are oriented, which include the emotions, but also other drives, many of which show in our bodies. And so he's going to give you some examples, right? Young men are swift and impetuous and fiery in their appetites and stung by madness. Why? Because of the abundance and heat of their blood. In old men, on the other hand, the source of desire, which is seated around the liver, he says, is in the process of being extinguished and becoming small and weak. So reason increases more and more in vigor as they get older. And he says, this isn't just for human beings. This is also for irrational animals. He says it's not rightness or wrongness of their opinions that leads them to oppose apparent dangers with valor and impetuousness, whereas others have helpless flutterings and fears in their souls, but it's the faculties. It's the way their bodies are put together, right? The blood, the breath, the body in general. And he says the emotional part springs from the flesh as from a root and carries with it its quality and composition. In a human being, things are a bit more complicated. He tells us why. Well, because we are affected in our body and move together with the impulses of the passion. So we get pale, we blush, we tremble and have palpitations of the heart. And sometimes we're cheerful and relaxed when we're hoping and expecting pleasures. He also points out, too, when the intellect by itself, the rational part, is doing its job, doesn't affect the body. The body can be calm so long as it's not being moved by any particular emotion. So, this orientation, this ordering, we can say, of the rational part ruling over, running the show, directing the irrational part. How does this actually work? So Plutarch here goes into a little discussion about how we human beings actually wind up being motivated, what runs things in us. And he says, some things are governed or arranged, dioketai, by what we could call an acquired disposition, or a habit, if you like, a hexe, right? Other things by nature, a natural disposition, phuse. Some things by a irrational part of the soul, alogopsuche, right? Others by the rational part of the soul and intellectual part of the soul. He says, logon achusan, having reason, and dianoian, the intellect, right? Now, we human beings, we have all of these. He says, we participate, met eschete, right? In all of these things. And it's human being, by the way, who participates in all of these. And he says, well, we're controlled by our acquired dispositions that we have, virtuous or vicious. We are nurtured by our natural disposition, and we make use of reason and intellect. So it's pretty important that we pay attention to all of these, including our irrational or emotional part, which he says, this includes the spring, the arche, the principle, the origin of emotion as a necessary part of ourselves. it's not something extra, not something surplus, not something that we can afford to strip away, as some people might think. If we could just leave our irrationality, our emotional nature behind, we'll be more fully human. Plutarch would say, no, man, that is not making you more human. You are cutting off a vital part of yourself, and he's not glorifying emotion in doing so. He's not taking up a sort of weird romanticism, but he is saying this is really important to pay attention to. So, he gives you some interesting examples here. He says it's not like like Kyrgyz or the Thracian cutting down and destroying the helpful elements of emotion together with the harmful. What we should do is be somebody who watches over the crop and guards the vine. When things are too much, we trim away the excessive part, and then we cultivate and dispose for use the remainder. He says, those who fear drunkenness, they don't pour their wine out upon the ground. Now, of course, we do, in fact, have television shows and movies and cartoons where people, they don't want to drink anymore. They're realizing they're alcoholics, and so they pour out all their alcohol into the sink. Okay, that's an excessive thing. Most of us don't have to do that, right? Those who fear passion don't need to eradicate the disturbing element. What do they need to do instead? Well, he says that the emotional part needs a couple things. It needs what's translated here is tending. The word that's being used there, therapeia. We get the word therapy from that, right? So the therapy of desire, to use a very famous book title by somebody who includes Plutarch, right, and is thinking about ancient virtue ethics, that's what our rational part should be doing with our emotional part. Education, paidagogias, right? Educating our emotional part, educating our emotions is something that reason can actually do. He also talks about tempering it, sort of like pouring the right amount in. And if we go back to what he said earlier when he was defining moral virtue and what it actually is, he said that virtue isn't an elimination of emotion, but rather introducing proper measure to it, proper orientation, structuring it in the right ways. And he says that if we do this, then reason can actually use. This is a really important term, chretai. It can make use of the emotions when they have been subdued and tamed, when they have been brought within proper measure. This is what Plutarch thinks that we ought to be doing if we want to be fully integrated and develop as human beings and possess the moral virtues.